Good evening. In the top 15 of the AP poll, Dan's favorite poll right now, currently. We buy or sell on several different topics at 7 o'clock. It's 7:15. We're going to talk to the play-by-play voice of the UNI Panthers. Nebraska famously plays them in football on Saturday. Our friend J.W. Cox is going to join us at 7:15. And at 7:30, which NFL games should you be watching this weekend? We tell you. And as always, on our final show before Friday, we tell you which NFL games you should bet on, courtesy of Warhorse Casino as well. You can get a hold of the show, 402-951-1620. You can also follow us on Twitter at AfterHours1620, where it is Wing Wednesday. Head over there, follow us, retweet the GIF of our wings. We're going to enter you into a drawing to win a $25 gift card to Cunningham's Pub tonight. The comparisons between Dylan Raiola and Patrick Mahomes continue to roll in, and it feels like Dylan Raiola is trying to publicly push the comparisons aside. He talked about wearing 15 because of Tim Tebow, and he talked about how he grew up playing baseball and didn't really follow football all that closely. And then yet he's doing Patrick Mahomes' pregame celebration before the game. He does have the faux hawk that allegedly he's had since he was 13 years old. This is becoming a bit, right?
It's I don't know. I don't know what to make of it, honestly. I was thinking about it, and it's just like, yes, there's probably some imitation in there. Yeah. There's probably some emulation in there. And what I don't understand is why there's such a big deflection. Like, everyone can see it.
Yeah. And everybody's talking about it, by the way.
Everyone's talking. If you want to be like Patrick Mahomes, that's not a bad thing. Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback on the planet. Maybe one of the best of all time.
Some people think the best of all time.
If that's who you're emulating, that's fine. But, like, why are we making all these reasons why you're not? I don't get it. It's very confusing.
Patrick Mahomes was even asked about it today and brought up his relationship with Dylan, and you know, they used the same trainer and spent some time together. And you know, he's obviously going all in on the bit on Twitter as well. But his head coach, Matt Rule, has talked this week kind of about the Dylan Raiola effect in the locker room, essentially. And we talked about this yesterday and mentioning that, you know, if our freshman quarterback is up to speed on what the playbook is, everybody else needs to be too. And Dylan was asked about that today, and he said, you know, I can do a better job making sure my guys are ready too. And we were talking a little bit about this off air, but there's always been the discussion for high schools in 4 years, the commitment to Georgia and the commitment to Ohio State, and then the flip to Nebraska kind of in the 11th hour. Any part of you kind of surprised by how mature and ready he is for this moment, when all the negative and red flags that were thrown up about him before he got to Lincoln? Is there any part of you that is still a little bit shocked by how ready he has been? Again, it's only been 2 games, very small sample size, but for this moment.
Yeah, I think sometimes we assign things to being red flags when they don't necessarily have to be.
Is that little Stockholm syndrome from Nebraska fans a little bit?
Well, here's the thing, okay? No one will begrudge you changing jobs.
It's a good point.
If the situation you're in doesn't suit you. No one will say, well, how can we trust you? You're just changing jobs. I mean, someone might say that.
In your interview, yeah.
But once you get to the job and it really suits you and it's working and you don't have a reason to leave because it's working out for you.
It's the right fit.
Right?
Yeah.
It just because it's happened in the past doesn't mean it has to happen in the future. Like, correlation and causation are not the same thing.
Yeah, because I mean, I have zero fear that he would leave this program unless something absolutely out of left field were to happen, like the Penn State job opens, Matt Rule leaves.
Why would he want
changes? To? Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what Matt Rule has echoed about guys not leaving the Nebraska program. Why would you want to go anywhere else? You have a top flight NIL program that's in-house now. You have the best facilities in the country, if not at least top 3. You're in one of the very few programs in the entire country that's operating in the black as an entire athletic department.
And there's never an empty seat in the house.
And you're playing in front of 90,000 people every single Saturday. So it's, and I mean, not Shedeur, excuse me. Travis Hunter talked about it on his podcast today. He openly bragged about how awesome the experience in Lincoln was, which I'm sure his coaches probably didn't appreciate all that much because they're in a couple of recruiting battles right now with that same coaching staff. But it's one of those things that I don't know for the guys that are here, and maybe not all of them, but for a lot of them, I wonder how much they can actually appreciate. Like Matt Rule talked about it last week. He said, if guys go other places, they're not getting covered like they are here. You're not going to have 10, 15, 20, 32 reporters in a room like there was last Thursday. And it's one of those places that, it's been talked about in a negative connotation for so long because it has been 8 years since a bowl game. Colin Cowherd was just talking a couple months ago that there's really only, and it's hard to argue, and you can be mad at him if you want, but it's hard to argue. There's really only been one program ever that competed for national championships on a consistent level that completely fell off, and it is Nebraska. Nobody else.
Minnesota.
Past World War II. I mean, it's one of those things that, like, Notre Dame has always been Notre Dame. Texas, even in its down years, has still been Texas, and you could see the kind of the light at the end of the tunnel. And they've made some hires that make you feel like you can get there. In Oklahoma, even past the John Blake series, and then they went out and got their guy Bob Stoops. And Alabama fell off for a decade, and then they hired Nick Saban. And it's like Nebraska, up until this point, has really been the only program that in the modern era has really been the team that competed for national championships and then went to not even playing for a bowl game. I'll give you Minnesota. And to some degree, Wisconsin was that way for a little while too. And
was Wisconsin competing for national championships though?
In the height of the Barry Alvarez era, they were considered, like one of the premier programs. But it's one of those things that Nebraska, we've said it around here for so long that you don't want to wake the sleeping giant. You don't want to wake the sleeping giant. And I think a lot of people around the country rolled their eyes at it. And then you see that drone show on Saturday night, and you see that crowd, and you see a 28-0 start to the game, and everybody went, "Oh yeah!"
But that stuff has always been there, like that,
right? But
the support and the facilities and the attention, and
but if you put
that's always been there.
But if you start winning games, that snowball starts to pick up a little bit of steam.
Sure,
and it feels like we've been pushing that snowball uphill for the past 8 to 10 years.
And it's been rolling back down on our faces.
And now it kind of feels like you're at the start of the downturn of that easy slope. And you kind of seen it today. I mean, for this game on Saturday, this line opened up at 33.5. And again, it is Northern Iowa and Nebraska. It's an FCS program. But this is a team that hasn't allowed more than a touchdown in a single game up until this point. And it's been against, two obviously FCS opponents, and Nebraska should be favored by multiple touchdowns. But I think a lot of the reason you saw the jump it's all the way back down to 27.5 now, but I think a lot of the reason you saw that jump to 33 out of the gate is there were a lot of eyeballs on this program on Saturday, and a lot of people went, "Oh, that's where the smart money needs to be going forward," because look how dominant that defense is.
Well, I said it yesterday. I think Nebraska's win over Colorado has maybe single-handedly derailed the Deion hype train.
Yeah,
because they looked like Colorado looked so out of place in that game in the first half. They did not look like they belonged on the same field. And to have, we know that the national media and a bunch of casuals are paying attention to Colorado.
Yeah.
Because of the flash.
A ton of casuals, yeah.
And so to go out in that spot and put on that performance, like I said it before the season, Colorado's biggest game of the year for Nebraska. Biggest game of the year. Because if they lose it, you lose all momentum heading into the start of your Big Ten slate.
But I'll say this: it kind of feels like the Nebraska hype train is just getting out of the station. Like if it's all the way off the rails for Colorado, feels like that first chugga just hit for the Nebraska train.
Yeah, and there,
comes after that. Dan?
There's only going to be more scrutiny on this program now. There's only going to be more pressure on this program now.
But it feels like the freshman quarterback that's in Lincoln right now isn't bothered by that at all, and is almost welcoming it to some degree.
And there, it's a cliche at this point, but pressure can break pipes or make diamonds.
Yeah.
And there's a lot on the line for Nebraska. Not necessarily this week. This week, I think you can kind of go on autopilot. Now, we've seen FCS teams jump up and win games they're not supposed to. It happens about once a year.
Yeah.
It almost happened to Colorado.
This one coming to Lincoln is going to be pretty good, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't think Nebraska is going to struggle at all, but I think a lot of people are going to be surprised with how buttoned up things are.
UNI is a good FCS program.
Yeah.
They're not
They
elite.
routinely beat the group or Power 5 schools in their own state.
Yeah. Well, not routine.
Well, they beat Iowa State pretty regularly, but they struggle with that.
Uh,
they cover all the time.
The pressure for Nebraska being ranked, having such a long ramp of expectation for this fan base, and now having the 5-star quarterback who's becoming a star, like the pressure's going to mount. It's going to build. And there's two ways that this can go. There's two ways that you can handle it. Either it can be a motivator and it can drive you to do great things, or it can crack you in half.
Yeah, and it feels like there was so much made about Matt Rule's in-game presence last year and his clock management. There's a lot to that. We've talked about that on the show. But I kind of wonder, like, for a guy, at Temple, there were no expectations in year 1 or year 2. But by the time he was there were a lot of expectations. Even when he got to Baylor in year 1.
I wouldn't say that there are ever any expectations at Temple, ever.
Based on this way he was able to stack seasons. I mean, for Temple, there were expectations. Sure. It wasn't like Ohio State expectations. But even at Baylor, when he got there, he was taking over a winner. And even with the sanctions, you were coming off of a winning, a structured winning program at Temple. Like, and I feel like if you're in Waco, you're like, well, if you can win there, you can probably win here right away. Art Briles did it.
Yeah.
Even though they haven't had that layer. But and by the time he left there were expectations. And it feels like Matt Rule is uncomfortable when there aren't expectations. He had that quote last year when he was walking off the field when they got to 5 wins and the fan yelled to him, hey, just one more. And he's like, I don't want just one more game. I think that made him feel really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
He feels a lot more comfortable this year, and it might be because of the defense and the 5-star quarterback, but he feels more comfortable with the expectation level this season than he did a year ago where there really weren't any.
It's interesting because I think going into this year, for me especially, there was still trepidation. Like there was still the history hanging like an albatross around our neck.
Yeah.
There's still waiting for the other shoe to drop. And I'm still kind of in that mode.
Sure. I think a lot of people are.
Like we have seen
Two people in this room are not in that volition.
We have seen this mode before for Nebraska. Year 2, Mike Riley.
Yeah.
Team was in the top 15, top 10.
Honestly, in the last time Nebraska was not only just 2-0, but 2-0 against the spread, which they are this year, was 2016, and they started that season 4-0-1 against the spread because it was they were favored by 3 and beat Oregon by 3. But we also seen how that season kind of fell apart. Now this schedule stacks up a lot nicer than that 2016 schedule.
But it also it's very backloaded.
Yes,
and that other shoe could drop late in the season.
Because I think there are 100% of Nebraska fans that before the season started would have taken 8-4. But how much different does 8-4 feel if you win your first 7, lose to Ohio State, beat UCLA, and then lose to USC, Wisconsin, and Iowa on the back end, and you finish the season 0-3? Because I
think it depends on how the bowl game goes.
But I mean, that sets you up for a pretty big letdown in the bowl game too, because you're coming off a 3-game losing streak. You just lost to your rival for the second straight year. You still haven't beaten Wisconsin since the first time you played them in the Big Ten. And USC, who people thought was going to be a rebuild, now I think they're going to be really good this year.
Nobody was counting on Nebraska beating USC anyway.
I don't think so either, but I think there are some. I think people in that locker room do.
Even 10-2, Dan Campanen has Ohio State and USC as the losses.
No, I don't.
You don't.
You said Ohio State and then Wisconsin, right?
I said Ohio State and UNI.
No, shut up.
Watch out for the Panthers.
No,
I'm still. By the way, still 100% on that train, if not more. I mean, that train is 100% gassed up, cold up, ready to go up the hill. We are the little engine that could. We might go 12-0.
You're 20% of the way there. I mean, you just got to do exactly what you did the last 2 games. 4 more times. You're there.
The point I'm making is it feels different. Like it still feels like there's waiting for the other shoe to drop, but at least that shoe is on the foot.
Yeah. Well,
you know what I mean?
Let me ask this, because you've been very adamant that you don't think Nebraska can get to double digits this year. I've said I could see a world where it happens. That nut job has been all in since day one. What percentage would you give to Nebraska winning 10 games this year? Caveat, we'll throw the bowl game in too.
Oh, 10 games with a bowl win?
Yeah.
So they could go 9-3 and win the bowl game, maybe 10-3.
But I mean, there's a lot of people around here that feel like 9-3 may be good enough to get you one of the last few spots in the playoff in the Big Ten too, depending how the rest of the season shakes out.
If the losses are Ohio State, USC, and Iowa, no. I don't think so, because I don't think you can lose to Iowa and go to the playoff.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that should be true for anybody. If you lose to Iowa, you're just automatically out. Even if you win the conference championship, we'll find something
There's
else.
not another team on the schedule that you can feasibly lose to and have a good enough resume. Like outside of Ohio State and USC. I don't think so.
Wisconsin?
No.
I mean,
I don't think Wisconsin's any good.
I think they've got I don't either, but I think they've got the clout and respect from previous regimes.
I mean, Illinois just beat Kansas, so maybe Illinois is going to be really good this year.
I don't think they're good. I think Kansas is bad too. Sorry, Jimmy Chavez.
So no, I don't know that 9-3 with Nebraska's schedule is good enough.
10 wins with a bowl game. What percentage do you put on?
I would say 25%.
I think I'm way north of that.
Obviously, you know that I am.
I think
significantly north.
I think I'm 50% in on the fact that Nebraska can get to 10 wins.
That's a lot.
Because listen, I think you can obviously make the argument for the next 5. They're probably going to be double-digit favorites in 6 of those games. I think they're going to be a double-digit favorite against UCLA. That right there gets you to 8. Now you got to maybe split the series with Wisconsin and Iowa, maybe win both of them and the bowl game. It's doable.
Are there new FPI projections?
Yes. They come out on Tuesdays.
I have not looked at them.
We'll get back to that later in the show. We got to catch up with our friends from Big Brothers Big Sisters in the Midlands. Emma Stevie and Randy Beagley are going to be with us here talking about what it means to be a mentor in the Midwest, and you can listen to that next on the other side of the break if you missed the opening segment. Want to get our thoughts on Dylan Raiola handling the pressure. Is he going to be a diamond or is he going to crack? John Schreiner told you, and you can listen to it on the playback at soundcloud.com/afterhours. 1620 was brought to you by our friend Amber Best with Berkshire Hathaway Real Estate. If you're looking for your forever home, look no further than Amber Best. That's BESS.com. You get live updates on the market, and she'll be giving you listings that she has available, like the current one that she has in Papillion. 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, 2,466 square feet, and a split ranch at 505 West Perry Way in Papillion. Check it out at amberbest.com to see more information. Tonight, we're talking to the Big Brothers, Big Sisters of the Midlands. We come back on the other side of the break here on 1620 The Zone.
How's your closet game? Is it going 10-2 this year? Is it going 12-0? If it's not going 12-0, then you need to get to 78th and Dodge. John Schreiner here for Jerry Ryan Clothing and Sportswear. Let's get your closet sorted out, okay? If it's not right, it's not good, you got problems, you don't know what you're wearing on Saturdays, you don't know what you're wearing on Sundays. Maybe you got big events going on Sunday. You don't know. What do you got? You got nothing. Get yourself to 78th and Dodge. Jerry Ryan Clothing and Sportswear. Polos, quarter zips, vests in all the colors. Gray, red, black, blue, Creighton, Nebraska, whatever you want, whatever you need, whatever sporting event you're taking in, they got you covered. You're going to be dressed in the finest. Mizzen and Main, Johnny O, Peter Millar. Don't go to the big box store and get that stuff that's just one size fits all. It wears out in a couple of weeks and it looks terrible after you've washed it once or twice. No, get you some quality gear so that when you show up to the stadium, you look like you belong there. Get the best gear. Get it in whatever color you want. Don't listen to Jimmy. You don't have to have red. You can wear black. You can wear white, whatever you want. And get it with the little Nebraska logo embroidered on the chest. And if you do have a big event coming up, you got the best suit fitting experience in the Midwest. Head over to 78th and Dodge. Tell them After Hours sent you. It's Jerry Ryan Clothing and Sportswear, dressing Omaha for over 50 years.
6:25 on a Wing Wednesday edition of the After Hours Lounge, brought to you by Bellevue University. If you want to keep up to date on all things Bellevue athletics, download the BU Bruins app to your smartphone. Tonight, we're joined in studio by Emma Beebe and Randy Beagley of Big Brothers Big Sisters of the Midlands. Guys, thank you very much for being here. Randy, we'll start with you. I mean, you're a mentor in this program. Why was it such a big deal for you to become a big brother, and what has it meant to you?
Yeah, so I've always wanted to be a mentor ever since my upbringing. I've wanted to just be able to give back to kids and be able to be a good example for them. Just knowing what you can go through as a kid, it really it's impactful, and just being able to be there for them at the end of the day.
I'm sure you hear this a lot, but I think there's a lot of people out there who have that desire to impact the lives of young people, but they're like, when do I find the time to do it? What kind of a time commitment are you making? And what would you say to someone who's like, I don't know if I have time to do this?
It's honestly not that bad. I mean, maybe once or twice a month for an hour, 2 or 3 hours here and there. It makes the biggest impact with them. We did karate a few weeks ago, and he just loved it.
Yeah.
So that was pretty awesome.
Emma, you guys have a big push here. You're trying to land 60 bigs in 60 days. Why is it the right time of year to kind of do this, and what's the momentum behind it?
Absolutely. So like you mentioned, we have a big volunteer recruitment campaign called 60 Men in 60 Days. We currently have 91 youth on our wait list. Over 71% of those are male youth. So we're really trying to get those boys matched on our wait list. And so that's the push. That's the urgency. And we're trying to get 60 men by October 30th.
What does that process look like if somebody did want to volunteer? How could they do that?
Absolutely. So they can start just by going to our website, mentoromaha.org. Sign up is there. We have 2 great mentoring programs. So if one isn't a great fit, you can join the other, or vice versa.
I'm sure you guys have the data points on all of the things, the impact it makes. But do you have some highlights of what kind of an impact it makes in a young person's life when they do have that mentor?
Absolutely. So our program is evidence-based, which means we've done the research, the surveys. We know for a fact that youth who are matched with a mentor have just incredible impact with their lives. I mean, we're talking about a decrease in risky behaviors, an impact on their confidence, having higher confidence, being more connected to school. I mean, you could go on, but having a mentor is just a phenomenal thing for a young person.
Randy, for you, do you have a favorite moment from being a big, and if so, what was it?
I would probably say it was the first time we went out to do something. We went up to Zesto's in Florence up there.
Yeah.
And just had ice cream and just started talking about everything, and just the amount of things we had in common.
You just a big Zesto's fan, or was it the experience?
No, he loves it, but
Sure.
He does live close by up there.
Okay.
So it was just it was a moment that I'll never forget, because it was just like, that could have been me years ago. And so just being able to know that I was giving back, it was just huge for me.
Is this the first little that you've been matched with?
So I did one program before. There was at base down in South Omaha.
Okay.
Lasted about a year.
At base, do you mean like at the Air Force Base?
No. At location.
Okay. Sure.
Place.
Sure.
But I will say this is probably the most impactful one for me, for sure.
And just tell everyone listening your story of how you came to be involved, how you came to the decision that you wanted to be a big brother.
Yeah. So I grew up in a place where it was definitely frowned upon to do anything outside of your religion. And so I wanted to give back without really
forcing somebody to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be that good example and not be a bad one, like some people
in your life
were raised with. So.
Sure. Emma, for you, really quickly, like when we talk about the common denominator in males that want to become bigs, what is usually the driving force behind it? And if somebody's out there that's debating whether they should or not, what's the best reason to become a mentor?
I think for folks, they don't realize how much of an impact it makes for them too to be a mentor. They think, this youth is getting all different kinds of skills from them, which is true, but they're also, as a mentor, gaining all these skills. When you talk about empathy, putting yourself in someone's shoes, doing activities that maybe you wouldn't normally do on a day-to-day basis. So mentors get just as much out of it as the mentee does.
What are some of the features of the matching process? How do you go about matching someone based on their interests?
Absolutely. So what we do is we interview our littles, and then we also interview our mentors, because we truly want to get to understand both as far as personality, interests, what their schedules even look like. And then
Do you like
based on that.
Zestos on the application?
Absolutely. If they like Zestos, we'll pair you with someone else who likes Zestos.
Sure. If you have the time, and even if you don't, but you want to make an impact on a little's life, head over to beamentor.org. Work with the Big Brothers Big Sisters of the Midland M&R team, and maybe grab yourself some Zestos and learn something about a youth in the Omaha area that could just use a mentor in their life. Guys, thank you very much for being here tonight. We greatly appreciate it.
Thanks for
Thank you.
having us.
If you missed the Big Brothers Big Sisters of the Midlands segment tonight, check it out at soundcloud.com/afterhours1620, wherever you may find your podcast at. It was brought to you by Controlled Comfort Heating and Air. It is fall, and that means that you need to get the maintenance done on your HVAC unit. Be prepared so you're not freezing this winter. Head over to controlledcomfort.com. Set up the maintenance appointment to have your peace of mind about your furnace this winter. Make sure the seasons didn't take too much of a toll on your AC unit as well. We'll be right back. Telling you who's for real, who's a pretender in the top 15. We come back on the other side of the break here on 1620 The Zone. Hey, everybody, it's Jimmy Allen here for Williams Law. Summertime is coming to an end, and we all know that, it's a little bit dangerous out in the heat and probably need a drink or two. And if you made a bad decision and decided to get behind the wheel of a car after doing it, it's not smart. It's dangerous. It's just not worth it. But if you are facing a DUI charge, work with our good friend Bob Williams at Williams Law. You can call 402-522-6317 or head over to williamslawllc.com tonight. Have Bob and the team walk you through the process and explain your rights with a free, no-obligation legal consultation today against williamslawllc.com or 402-522-6317. Get the best in litigation in your corner tonight. 6:35 on a Wednesday night edition of the After Hours Lounge, brought to you by Bellevue University. Keep up to date on all things Bellevue Bruins. Download the BU Bruins app to your smartphone tonight. The AP Top 25 has come out, and it is Dan's favorite list in the whole world.
Unnecessary.
But right now, in the top 15, you have 7 SEC teams, 4 of which are in the top 5. You have 4 Big 10 teams, 3 Big 12 teams, and only Miami from the ACC. So I broke this down into tiers, and I want to have a debate about pretenders versus contenders, and I think it's different at each level. So we're talking about the top 5, which are Georgia, Texas, Ohio State, Alabama, and Ole Miss. Of these 3 groups, which team could absolutely host a playoff game, which means they're not winning
one of the top 4.
They're not winning the SEC. So this makes it very easy because only one of these teams are going to do that. Which one of these teams is going to get a bye? And obviously that has the opportunity to be Ohio State or one of the other 4 teams. And which one of these teams is not a top 5 team? I'll start off. As far as most likely to host a playoff game, that means not win a conference championship, but still be in this top 5 discussion at the end of the year, I think it's Texas. I think Georgia is the best team in the SEC. Texas might be the second best team in the country. They're playing at an elite level right now. Obviously, they're ranked number 2 on this list. But I think Ohio State's going to absolutely win the Big Ten, so they're not in this discussion. But I think that Texas is the team ultimately who ends up hosting a playoff game, and it may end up being 2 of these 5. By the way,
most likely to host. Yeah, I think you might be right. Texas, for all the good that they've done and how good they looked against Michigan, I don't actually think Michigan's all that good.
I don't either.
I think Michigan's going to be fairly bad.
Just signed Sharon Moore to that deal today, though.
I've been saying that for a while. I still think Georgia's just got dudes, man. Georgia just has dudes.
Do you think people would show up in Oxford, Mississippi for a playoff game? Because Lane Kiffin has been very adamant about them not showing up to home games. Hottie toddies would be flying off the counters.
I think that Ole Miss legitimately has a chance to host a playoff game also, though.
Wow. Okay.
If they could be 3rd best in the SEC and still be either the 5, 7, or 8 seed,
then still do it. Yeah, for sure.
You still get to host.
Yeah, you don't even have to be in the top 5.
So,
Dan, do you have an answer
for who probably will host a playoff game?
Yeah, so not win their conference, but host a playoff game.
Well, knock off. I mean, I kind of agree with both of you. If I was truly going one direction over the other, I would go Ole Miss just because I do like riffing with Kiffin.
Sure, absolutely. Who doesn't?
Been my favorite thing to say anytime Lane Kiffin gets mentioned. And I mean, I've got ties to Ole Miss. It's kind of a school that's close to my heart. Jack Kerouac was the postmaster general there for a while. I will bring that up every single time it gets mentioned. And I mean, they're playing a very different and special brand of SEC football right now that I think is really exciting.
Of these top 5, who do you think is the most?
Can I make one more point? I think just talking through this exercise, I think if you want to put a percentage chance on it, who has the highest chance of hosting a playoff game, I think it is Ole Miss.
Yeah, just because I think those numbers drop if you're talking about Texas and Georgia because they both have a chance at getting the bye. Yeah, I agree with that. Of this group, of the top 5, who do you think is the most properly rated of these 5 teams? If we're talking about the best 5 teams in the country, who is in the right spot in this list?
It's not Alabama.
Oh wow, okay.
I don't believe in Alabama.
Yeah. I was saving that for pretender class.
Yeah.
Most properly rated, in my personal opinion, is Ohio State.
Okay.
I think that they deserve to be number 3 right now. And I think if you're in that locker room, I'm sure Ryan Day right now is preaching, hey, we're 3rd in the AP poll right now. Guys, that's perfectly fine. You know what's really fun? Going out and punching someone in the mouth after having a bye week and saying, hey, look at us. We're the best darn team in college football.
Dan, you're 100% right. And here's the main reason. And what we talked about earlier, I need that charge now, by the way.
Oh, yeah, here you go.
It's Ohio State for this reason. They still have that question at quarterback, I think, to some degree. And it's because of the competition they've kind of played against up until this point. But you know who the dudes are in Athens. You know who the dude is in Austin. And to some degree, you've got 2 of them in Texas. So it's and maybe you do it in Columbus as well. But to me, that's kind of why I think they're the most properly rated and belong exactly at number 3. I think we've kind of touched on this. I'm in agreement. I think the pretender is Alabama, and it's for the same reasons I just said about Ohio State. I'm still not sold on Jalen Milroe. He's looked better. I think he's looked the best he ever has in this Kalen DeBoer offense. But I think there's so many question marks around what Kalen DeBoer's Alabama looks like, which is crazy to say. Because Ole Miss still hasn't proven it to you that they belong in this discussion.
Alabama so far has played a bad Western Kentucky team and a bad South Florida team.
Yep, and they were competitive with South Florida. That's not a great look for Kalen DeBoer.
Until late, that South Florida game was in doubt.
Yeah, they were tied going into the fourth quarter. I believe Alabama may have scored in the last few minutes of the third period. Moving on to the next 5 teams. So this is 6 through 10. It's Oregon, Penn State, Missouri, Tennessee, and Utah. And obviously, these questions are a little bit different for these ratings. Of these 5 teams, who of these 5 have the best chance to bump themselves up and be that team that's not necessarily hosting a playoff game, but maybe winning their conference?
It's tough, but right now I think it's Miami. I think Miami has the inside track on the ACC now.
Hold on. So this is Oregon, Penn State, Missouri, Tennessee, and Utah. Miami's 11. Miami's 12, sorry.
In the AP?
Yes.
Miami's 10 in the AP.
Okay, well, I wrote these down wrong, so we're just going to rule Miami out. So it's Oregon, Penn State, Missouri, Tennessee, and Utah. Of those 5 schools.
Okay. Utah. Then it's definitely Utah, because I think Utah, I've been saying it all along, I think Utah is the runaway favorite for the Big 12. I think they're clearly the best team.
Still
in the Big
feel
12.
that way?
Still feel that way.
Okay.
I don't think anything's. I mean, what have they shown you to?
I just think K-State's better than we thought they were. I think Oklahoma State showed you how resilient they are on Saturday.
I don't know. Utah's defense is different.
Okay.
Like Utah's defense.
I'm not taking anything away from Utah. I just think that the Big 12 is better than I thought they were going to be.
See, now here's the thing. I've been long saying I think the middle of that Big 12 is going to be fun and wild and crazy.
That doesn't mean they're good, though.
It doesn't mean that they're good. I think Utah's legit good.
Okay.
That defense, I think, is legitimate.
And then of this group, who was the most properly rated, like we discussed in the previous one, but may not win their conference and possibly host that playoff game?
This is a tough group to pin down.
What's crazy is you probably want to look at the 2 SEC schools, but you've got 3 SEC schools above them, so it's less likely to host a playoff game in that situation. It's got to be Oregon, right?
Yeah, but Oregon has not looked the part of a team.
Right, but they're ranked
far.
They're ranked where they are right now, which means even if they end up going 10-2, and maybe you get a 12-0 Ohio State team playing 11-1, somebody else out of the Big Ten, they could still end up hosting a playoff game, not even play for their conference championship along the way too.
Sure, and I think after the Week 1 performance of Penn State against West Virginia, we kind of started to crown them, and then some cold water got poured on that in Week 2 when they didn't look so great. Oregon might be just the de facto choice here because of what we've already said. That, look, Tennessee,
they didn't look great on Saturday.
They didn't look great. And Missouri, you're talking about teams that are vying for 4th best in the SEC at this point.
Yeah, at best in some cases.
Yeah, so Oregon might just be that team by default.
So who's the biggest pretender then? Is in your eyes, is it Penn State? Is it the team that may not even be in the top 12 or close to it by the end of the discussion? Because for me right now, of these 5 teams, I mean, Oregon is still Oregon. They've got the clout. It's kind of a got to have it year for James Franklin, and you just kind of laid the egg you did on Saturday. If you're Penn State, so to me, that's who the biggest pretender is of these 5.
Again, this is a tough group, and
I think you have question marks about every single one of these teams outside of Utah.
Certainly, I do. And look, it might be Missouri for me. I am not as high on Missouri as everyone else was. I think Missouri caught a lot of people off guard last season, caught a lot of people sleeping on them.
Going to be hard to do it this year.
And it's going to be really hard to repeat when you're the number 6 or 8 team in the country. Like, you are going to be, you're going to get everyone's best shot at this point.
The back five: USC, Miami, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, K-State round out the top 15. One lone Big Ten team, the only ACC team in the top 15. Two Big 12 teams who feel like, we just talked about it, as a conference that's wide open. Who's the most real contender of these five to win their conference championship and earn that bye? It's got to be Miami, right?
Sure. They have, like I said, the inside track on the ACC at this point. Florida State has completely fallen off. Virginia Tech is not the team I thought they were going to be. Clemson is not the team that anybody thought they were going to be.
They had a lot of question marks. Who's second then? If you take Miami out of the equation, we'll say
ACC,
they are 10. No. I mean, right now, out of these other four schools, who's the most likely to win their conference out of USC, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, and K-State?
Probably Kansas State. If they could jump up and bite Utah in a conference championship situation.
I think they're the most built to beat Utah, but I think Oklahoma State is the better team.
Oklahoma State's defense is not good enough.
I think they have, and that's why I think they're the better team to catch up to Utah, because they can pose those offense. But if you catch Utah on an off night and you get into a shootout with them, I think Oklahoma State's more built to do that.
I mean, they've given up 20 and 31, and they've played South Dakota State and Arkansas.
Arkansas is better than people thought they were going to be, and I think is going to have a winning season. And South Dakota State can compete with a lot of different teams around the country.
But if you're talking about a team that can win the Big 12, South Dakota State should not be competing with them.
Well, some people think that Colorado. Sorry, I'm done. Never mind.
No, Colorado cannot win.
I can't even say that with a straight face.
Can't even make it through one segment.
I don't think Colorado can win the Mountain West.
Ooh, shots fired. Yeah, and then that brings up the question: who's the biggest pretender of this group between USC, Miami, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, and K-State?
Oklahoma.
I don't even think it's debatable.
No,
that Houston team is not good, and they probably should have lost that game.
Yeah, Oklahoma looks bad. Like Jackson Arnold doesn't look like he's the guy. Brent Venables looks lost in the sauce. Like,
yeah, especially
they don't know what they're doing at running back.
Dylan Gabriel looked like the savior in Norman last year and kind of kept that thing on the train tracks, and he kind of looks like the guy in Eugene this year too. I don't think Dan Lanning's a bad coach. Brent Venables may find his way back to the relegation of DC sooner rather than later.
They don't. That Oklahoma looks like, man, they are entering a dark, dark time in the SEC.
Yeah, this is not a great time to make that transition.
Also,
it's great
when you opened up the bottom third and you went, "There's one Big Ten team in here." I went, "No, there's not." Completely forgot the USC's in the Big Ten.
Yeah, by the way, we didn't even mention USC. They may be the closest one to you could find your way into a conference championship game out of this list, though, other than Miami.
It's that, yeah. I mean, they're vying with Oregon for the number 2 spot in the Big Ten right now.
I think they're the second best team in the Big Ten. I really do.
We'll find out.
Actually, I don't even think it's close. You know what is close? A Cunningham's Pub location. It's a Wing Wednesday edition of the After Hours Lounge. You can catch anything we're talking about tonight at soundcloud.com/afterhours1620 or wherever you may find your podcast at. It's brought to you by Cunningham's Pub. It's a Wing Wednesday. Follow us on on Twitter at AfterHours1620 or on our Facebook page. Make sure you also follow Cunningham's. Retweet or share the GIF of the Wings or the Cunningham's logo, and we'll let you know a drawing to win a $25 gift card to Cunningham's tonight. Their tap takeover starts tonight. There's even a cornhole tournament. Get out to the Old Mill location tonight if you want to throw some bags and drink some beer. We'll be right back, finding out what's trending on social media. Hey, everybody, it's Jimmy Allen here for Forsman's Finest Decks. Maybe you're at the in-laws this weekend catching the game and you're sitting out on their back patio and going, man, this deck's pretty nice. There's a really good chance you're probably sitting on one of the decks built by Travis and the crew at Forsman's Finest Decks. You can enjoy the finer things in life by heading over to forsmansfinest.com and have your dream deck built this winter. Forsman's Finest Decks, building the finest decks in Omaha. 6:52 on a Wing Wednesday edition of the After Hours Lounge, brought to you by Bellevue University. Head over to bellevue.edu, register for winter classes, become a Bruin tonight. It is a special day in the United States of America, and we celebrate those that we lost 23 years ago on September 11th. The social media soundbite tonight is adjacent to the remembrance of this day 23 years ago. That is obviously George W. Bush, the former president of the United States, throwing out the first pitch at the Yankees game immediately following. Or no, was it the
October 30th, 2001.
Yeah,
it was the first game of the World Series.
Correct. Thank you. And I will never forget this day 23 years ago. I was in middle school at the time, and I was at Norris Middle School, and it was between periods. I was walking behind these two girls that were coming out of home ec, and they were talking about what they're doing in home ec. And then the girl on the left said, "Oh yeah," and they bombed. They were talking about a game they were playing in home ec, but the girl on the left goes, "Oh yeah," and they bombed the Pentagon too. And I kind of like looked sideways, and I was like, "What kind of game are you people playing in home ec?" And I walked into my homeroom class, and our teacher had kids. Back in the day, schools had TVs on like carts that they wheeled in, and they were big box TVs. And my homeroom teacher was a complete mess. Her husband was supposed to be at the World Trade Centers that day. And this was before cell phones, obviously, and she wasn't able to get a hold of him. And then we watched basically everything unfold. Like we saw the second tower fall and all that. And then obviously we got the news about the Pentagon and then the plane that went down in Pittsburgh. And left school early that day. They kind of let everybody go, and Air Force One flew right over my house. I mean, it's no secret. The president was flown to Omaha, and you could literally count the windows on the plane flying right, because I lived on 9th and Hickory. So just a jaunt down from not from Epley, but from Offutt. Thank you. And just a day that, I mean, the world really stood still. I mean, people just were glued to their televisions to find out what was going to happen next.
I was in Russian class in Monterey, California, training to be a cryptologic linguist in the United States Marine Corps. And up until that point, the language school was just part of the community of Monterey. There were no fences, there were no gates, there were no guards. It was just like a college campus that was in the town.
Wow. Okay.
There was a dance club on base that was like the popular place to be for everybody on the weekends.
Changed that day.
Everything changed that day. There were guards posted at every door. They put up chain link fences around the campus. We had guards, and look, I'll be 100% honest with you. Being a young Marine at that time who was fresh out of basic training and
terrifying,
being at my first school, it was scary. I mean, literally did not know what was going to happen next in my life.
I don't think I've ever had this conversation with anybody. I mean, there's a ton of people that the next day were at their enlisting offices and signing up and were ready to kind of go to bat for America. Do you feel comfortable talking about it? Like
sure.
What it was like on that day? Like what was the message that was kind of given to you guys?
We didn't get a lot of information.
There wasn't a lot of information to be given.
No. Obviously it was a lot of change. I mean, we had 24-hour guard duty, there was somebody posted at every door. And there are a lot of buildings on that campus because there are a lot of classrooms.
Yeah.
And there was a guard posted at every door 24 hours a day. We were ordered not to leave the immediate area. San Francisco was totally off limits, because there was reports that there were other potential hijackers that were targeting planes to hit the West Coast at the time.
Yep.
So, I mean, it was incredibly harrowing and to some degree traumatizing, because you don't go back from that. Like, you don't go back to the world before that time.
Yeah, we never will. Dan, how old were you on 9/11?
I would have been 6 years old.
Do you remember that day at all?
I do, actually. Yes. I mean, it's still like one of the more, when you're like that young, you don't have a lot of extremely vivid memories
and grasp on what's going on.
And first off, did not grasp what was going on.
Yeah.
But it was like one of the most vivid memories because it was like everything in school just stopped.
Yeah.
And I don't think our teacher turned around for about 4.5 hours. We sat on the floor on our little pillows and we just watched TV. And I just remember seeing both of those buildings burning, then collapsing. And then later on that night, going home and having my mother and father explain to me what had happened.
Such a surreal moment when the towers fell.
And of course, I was still young enough at that point that you ask the stupid kid question that what's the World Trade Center?
Yeah.
And your parents try to explain it to you and you go, so if I had an apple and I wanted to get a bag of flour, I could trade that there? And they go, yeah, pretty much.
Kind of.
Yeah. I honestly had no idea what the World Trade Center was before that day. And not exactly the reason to learn that either. It's just, man, it's just one of those days that, we'll have to explain to our kids and our grandkids and the people that came after us. Like my nephew was born September 15th, 2021. So I remember sitting in the waiting room with my grandfather and my dad, just having the conversation about what happened, what took place. And when you're 13 and you're talking to somebody that served in Vietnam and getting his thoughts on the situation, it kind of gives you a lot more perspective than any 13-year-old necessarily needs. But we'd love to hear your thoughts and your remembrance of this day 23 years ago and our thoughts with the families and everybody affected in the World Trade Center on September 11, 2001. If you missed the social media soundbite tonight, check it out at soundcloud.com/afterhour1620. It was brought to you by our friends at Pixel Fire Marketing. If your business needs help with social media marketing, website design, or online advertising, pixelfiremarketing.com is here to help. Their social media experts will ignite your social media presence, entice your ideal client, and engage your brand online. Check out pixelfiremarketing.com for more information today. We're going to have a little more lightheartedness on the other side of the break with Barcel at 1620 The Zone. Hey everybody, it's Jimmy Allen here for AX Plumbing. Home or residential, they can do it all. Let Nick Betts and his team come out, diagnose your plumbing issues, and if you're having a little bit of financial issues right now, the economy's tough, everybody's struggling, and if you have a big plumbing need that you can't necessarily pay for up front right now, let Nick and the crew at AX Plumbing help you with financing as well. All you got to do is head over to axpservice.com tonight. There's even a discount for current and former military members as well. Work with a local and trusted plumber by working with AX Plumbing at axpservice.com today. 7:03 on a Wing Wednesday edition of the After Hours Lounge, brought to you by Pyramid Contractors. You don't become the number one roofer in Omaha for over a decade by accident. Head over to pyramidroof.com. Book a free estimate with Kyle and the team tonight. It's time for Buy or Sell with Dan Campenden. As it teed up for us. Dano, what do you got?
Well, guys, last night there was a heck of a debate. Both candidates put out quite a show for the cameras. Obviously, I'm talking about red versus blue Nebraska.
Oh.
The Huskers take down the Jays in 5. Buy or sell, Coach Booth and the gals can make a field of 8 by the end of the year after that performance.
I think they're one of the best 8 teams in the country, so I am absolutely buying this. Creighton came out looking better in a loss last night than some teams would have, and obviously still can't scratch that itch on their back of beating the Huskers. Still haven't done it in program history, but it feels like they're as close as they've ever been.
Yeah, I've had a front row seat to watch Blue Jay volleyball a few times this year, and yeah, they're very good. This is a really good team. I think that this team has a chance to potentially make the Final Four.
Wow.
They are complete. They've got everything. They've got
including depth.
They've got tremendous defenders. Like Bilanovic, the transfer from Penn State, libero, she's fabulous. The Getzinger, the middle transfer from Kentucky, awesome. And you throw those two on with all the returning production that they've had with Nora Sist and Ava Martin, like that is a complete team. They have no holes in their game, and they showed it last night against Nebraska. That thing came down to the wire. They absolutely have a chance to make the Elite Eight.
Yeah, I thought they were going to actually be able to take the final set too.
Yeah, I thought they were going to pull it off. When I rewatched it from the tip when I got home last night, I was like, this is one of the best volleyball matches I have ever seen.
It was so
in my
high
entire
level.
life. And
we got to watch most of it in studio here, and John and I just during the breaks kept going, this is really good.
Yeah, I couldn't pay that much attention, but oh my word. If both these teams keep up the scale that they're keeping up, which actually leads me to my second question.
Yeah.
Buy or sell that Cook and the Volley Skurs can make another title run again.
Oh, absolutely. They're that talented of a team. Obviously, the SMU hiccup isn't going to affect them long term, you hope. I mean, it's not like it's going to affect their resume a whole lot. It may be one of the few, if not the only game match they lose all year. Yeah, I think they're absolutely built to win a national championship.
Well, they turned around and beat the number 9 team in the country. So
yeah.
I think they're going to be all right.
Indeed.
Could be the best thing that happened to them, actually.
Might be.
Yep. So moving on. I don't think we got to touch on this last night, but Jimmy, your 49ers did what we all thought they would do and defeated the Jets 32-19. Buy or sell that the check has been written and cashed. The Niners are the team to beat in the NFC this year.
No. They're the team to beat in the NFL this year.
I knew you were going to take this route. I love it.
Best and most complete team in all of football. They were a year ago. The only difference was the 15 in Kansas City, Missouri that plays quarterback. And if they can overcome that hurdle, which is a lot easier said than done because I think he's the best football player in the world right now, then if you're talking 1 through 22, I think they're the most complete roster. Christian McCaffrey is probably the second best player in football behind Patrick Mahomes. He's obviously got to get healthy. You've got the Brandon Ayuk situation figured out. George Kittle is still a top 3 tight end. Deebo Samuel is a top 5 utility player in all of football. Fred Warner is probably the best outside linebacker in all of football. Trent Williams is probably the best left tackle in all of football. It's the most complete team. And you have the second best play caller in the NFL as your head coach.
And more importantly, Brock Purdy is the best game manager that we've ever seen, guys.
I agree. Because I think he's better than that, but he doesn't need to be. He may end up being better than that by the end of his career, but with this roster, that offensive line, those offensive weapons, and that head coach, you don't need to be more than a game manager.
I'm only making the joke because I haven't heard anyone say it yet this year, and I'm waiting for someone to be like, Brock Purdy's a game manager.
Great.
And I will light myself on fire in the middle of the street like a monk.
I hope he doesn't ever have to be more than that, specifically this season.
They're the team to beat in the NFC, and there's a reason why I'm not going to the team to beat in the NFL, and it's totally to do with psyche. This team has a problem when it gets to a certain spot, a certain situation in the postseason where they just can't seem to get out of their own way in certain spots.
Yeah, specifically the Super Bowl.
Yep. And that's the one. And that's why, like, I think they can get there. Question still has to be answered if they can win it.
Hey, Dan, we got to get to JW Cox from the UNI broadcast team. So if we could just get to the random Dan question, get out of here.
Of course we can. Football season has once again wrapped itself in its warm embrace, but the sports world is still spinning on just the same. Jimmy, buy or sell that the hiring of Pochettino is going to be enough to right the USA men's ship?
Absolutely. It's the guy that John Schreiner wanted, and he can coach guys to kick balls in the nets, and I think it's a great hire.
It's a fantastic hire, and I love it. I love everything about it.
You see the grin on his face? I think that's the biggest smile I've ever seen you have.
This is so exciting for the U.S. men's national team. This is bigger than Klinsmann. This is a bigger moment than hiring Klinsmann.
Really?
Absolutely.
Also, John, because this is your area of expertise, and also formerly your boy, your dog, was he a competent manager in Chelsea?
Pochettino.
I guess. What do you call him?
Yeah, he's the manager.
There's a cool word for
the
it.
Manager. Yes, it's the manager. That's he was hamstrung at every turn by Chelsea brass. Their transfer strategy is incoherent at best, and I think that he fell out of love with working for the organization. And if he had stayed long term, he would have been able to build them back into a European title contender.
That is the exact answer that I was hoping for from you, because this question was directed at Jimmy, but we obviously know who it was really for.
Marlon Fossey. This guy that plays soccer for the U.S. men's national team.
Feet. That's what you play soccer with.
Jimmy Allen, John Trennan, to host the After Hours Lounge. And if you missed it, buy or sell tonight with Dan Campion, you can check it out at soundcloud.com/After Hours 1620 or wherever you may find your podcast. That is brought to you by Controlled Comfort Heating and Air. The leaves are on the ground, the footballs are in the air, and that means it's maintenance time. You need to have your HVAC unit looked at. You can have it done by Controlled Comfort Heating and Air by heading over to controlledcomfort.com. Listen, I was literally in LA when my air conditioner went out this summer. My wife picked up the phone, made a quick call, had somebody out there within the hour, diagnosed the problem, and fixed our issue with our HVAC system. They can help you out that quickly, too. Head over to controlledcomfort.com to have your unit serviced this fall. We'll be right back. Talking to the voice of the UNI Panthers here on 1620 The Zone.
Hey, everybody. John Schreiner here for Bob at Williams Law. If there's a certain legal situation that is hovering around your life and you're not sure what to do about it, maybe you don't understand the charges, maybe you don't know what your rights are, don't know how you're going to handle this whole situation, then you need to give Bob a call at 402-522-6317. He's going to give you a free, no obligation legal consultation. And when he says no obligation, he means it. He's going to explain your rights, walk you through the process, tell you exactly how it's going to work from start to finish and how he's going to represent you. And if you don't agree that that's the best course of action, you go your separate ways, no questions asked, no problems. But if you think Bob is going to be the best to represent you, then he'd love to take you on as a client. Check him out at williamslawllc.com or give him a call at 402-522-6317. It's Bob Williams at Williams Law.
7:15 on a Wednesday night edition of the After Hours Lounge, brought to you by Pyramid Contractors. Head over to pyramidroof.com. Book yourself a free estimate for your windows, gutters, siding, and door needs. Check out pyramidroof.com tonight. Joining us on the phone is JW Cox, the play-by-play voice of the UNI Panthers. JW, how are you tonight?
I'm doing great. How are you?
We're doing fantastic, man. The Panthers are doing well as well, off to a 2-0 start this season. Very similar results from a scoring standpoint as Nebraska. And UNI, from a score result standpoint, has their defense has been locked in. How good has this Panthers defense been? Why have they been so suffocating?
Well, I think the biggest thing to underscore with this defense, and it's been a difference from my first 2 years, is year number 3 for me, is just the way that this defense plays. It's more physical. It's more aggressive at the point of attack. They're running through guys to make plays, and there's going to be a lot to still be told. Coach Mark Farley said in his press conference earlier this week, just like, this defense isn't as good as it can be yet, but they've found out some things, and he likes the way that they play. And I think that approach is the first building block that he wants to make it a good defense. And then you move from making sure you're playing the right way to making sure your assignment's sound, and then you start making big-time plays that are game-breaking plays. And that'll be what truly tells the tale of what this team can be in 2024 and what this defense can be. But I love the early results, like you said. I mean, you get the first 2 wins. The way an FCS schedule shakes out, usually we get these FBS games like we're staring down the barrel of this week. Usually we get it in week number 1 or week number 2, and so you don't start 2-0 very often. And it's good. It's good to have those good vibes. It's good to win a couple of games while you learn about what your team is in live action. And so, yeah, everybody's feeling good. And I think that defense is off to a good start with some building blocks to be a really good unit.
JW, we've seen the gap between the upper echelons of the FCS and the FBS narrow considerably over the last, decade or so, where some of these FCS programs have been able to come up and play teams at the FBS levels and get wins. How do you feel the psyche of UNI is coming into this game knowing who they're playing?
I think the psyche, when you're the football player and you're the guy that's going to be in the trenches, you have to believe in yourself. And I think these guys do. And that's a fun thing for me about that gap that you're talking about. There's a lot of guys on this roster that come from very similar places and have some very similar accolades to, again, some of the guys on the Nebraska roster. Now, we don't have as many, right? We don't have the depth that Nebraska does, but each individual guy, they were the best at one point on whatever team they were on before UNI, and they still have that confidence, and that's how you have to go into this game. Yes, the deck is going to be stacked against you. Yes, none of them are going to be prepared for the 90,000 people or whatever it becomes to play UNI. I know that's different than playing Colorado, but that environment is going to be the biggest thing they've ever seen, no matter how many people are actually there. But you have to have that confidence to go in, still do your job, still execute, and see where the chips fall. As Coach Farley told me for our conversation this week, it's, you still win it on the field, right? You still win it by going out there and playing and doing your job. And you might not, but that's how you have to approach it. All the other stuff is still outside noise, just like it would be when we played Valpo, when we went to St. Thomas and played in front of 3,000 people, right? On the field is where it was won. The rest of it eventually doesn't matter. And so that's what you have to have confidence in, and that's what you have to go do.
Obviously, in talking to this coaching staff, Nebraska's offense has been pretty explosive in 2 first half, but pretty stagnant in the second half in both games. Who are some of the guys that have been called out by name that the coaching staff is worried about at UNI?
Well, obviously, the quarterback. I mean, Raiola is going to be the guy who makes it go, and I think it's interesting to hear Coach Rhule's comments, too, this week about, the way second halves have gone, and maybe it's appeared from the outside that they haven't trusted him to go open up the offense a little bit, certainly against Colorado. But it's the other guys that need to come along faster and get up to his level, and then they can really go. And so I think for Coach Farley, who's seen a lot of offenses and a lot of quarterbacks, he looks at it as he sees a guy who could make this be an explosive offense with obviously the weapons that they have around. And then that offensive line. That's always going to be something that draws the eye when people are watching Nebraska. And for us, it's going to be a unique challenge. Our defensive line they're not just going to be undersized in this game. They're going to be undersized when we get into our conference play, too. We go up against the South Dakota States and the North Dakota States that continually do also put out offensive linemen into the NFL. But what this defensive line has to do, and it's what they've done so far, rely on their speed, their quickness, and do it a little bit different way. So it's going to be a great test and a huge leap up from the offensive lines that they've seen in the first 2 weeks. So those are the two for me that when people have talked about so far what they've seen and what they're concerned about going into this game, those are the two that really stand out.
Panthers have had two running backs who are getting the lion's share of the carries, Ty Edwards and a kid who actually started his high school career at Omaha South, Amari Pisak-Hickson. Yeah. What have you seen from the running backs group so far?
They run hard, and Ty is big. I mean, you look at Ty Edwards, and he's going to stack up. I don't care, FBS, FCS, whoever, and NFL. I mean, he's within 10 or 15 pounds of Derrick Henry size, right? Like, wow. I'm not saying that's the guy, but you look at a comp at 6'4" and up over 225 pounds, and there's not many of the guys playing that position that are that size. And he runs that way. He does have soft hands, so he can be a threat out of the backfield. To put it in perspective, another NFL name that came through here was David Johnson. He just went into our Hall of Fame, and of course, he did some great things in the NFL. And Ty right now is having the best start to a season since David Johnson's start to the 2013 season. So it's pretty elite company. The way he's going, the way he's running, everybody loves to block for that guy. He hits the hole hard. And then you look at Amari, and really his only difference is he's 4 inches shorter. He's 6 foot. He's over 220 pounds. He's a big load back there to bring down. He's actually got a receiving touchdown. He had 2 rushing touchdowns last week. He is ready to come into his own and just ready to go play. And it's really even Steven as far as carries go when it comes to if things are going according to plan. They've basically both talked to me about how, we know it's 3 downs and then the next guy's coming in. It doesn't matter what has just happened. If we're on the doorstep, it's probably going to be the other guy if I get my 3 snaps. So they have to be ready. They are ready, and they're both eager. They're basically 1A and 1B on the depth chart. And so it's been fun to watch. Everybody loves to block and hand off to those guys. I've heard offensive linemen talk about how fun they are to block for because they hit the hole so hard. The quarterback, Aiden Dunn, loves both guys and just giving it to them and watching them run. And he's just jealous of how violent they can be when they run the football. So they are fun to watch, and they are going to put up some numbers as long as they both stay healthy, which was both of their issues last year at times. But it's going to be fun to watch those guys as a tandem as we go through our season, no matter what happens on Saturday here.
We're catching up with J.W. Cox, the voice of the UNI Panthers. Matt Rule talked about the time of the game and said he'd prefer keg eggs and football and have a game at 9 a.m. This game is obviously going to be a night game in Lincoln. What are the coaching staff's thoughts about coming to Lincoln at night?
I think they all agree, by the way, in general with Coach Rule. I don't know that you will find a coach that says, let's sit around and wait to go play our game, right? I mean, you wait all week, and then you got to keep guys focused in a hotel or whatever it is. And so everybody would love to go play. I don't know. I think you look at the coaching staff, and they knew it would be a challenge. If we kick this game off at 11, there's going to be people there that make it loud and make it a huge home field environment. There's going to be people there at 6:30 that do the same thing. So I think from an environment standpoint, I think you'd be splitting hairs from being the opponent. But everybody would want to go early. And I do think coaches get into coach mode, and they're here to go find the best way to win this game. But I do think in talking to them really in the off season, when we look at this schedule as the whole, everybody's excited to see what that is like for the first time. For most of us, for me, a lot of the players, a lot of the coaches, they've never experienced Memorial Stadium or really anything like it at night. And so there's an excitement factor to it. And so, with the caveat that I think everybody involved would always love to just jump in there and go play when you wake up. It's going to be exciting, and I think everybody's ready to embrace that.
Is that what you're most looking forward to, is just the environment of a night game in Lincoln?
For sure. I mean, that'll be the number one topic, certainly when we take the air and the excitement starts to build over our pregame, and then you get to that kickoff, and it's going to be insane. And I don't know what's going to happen after that, and I'm excited to see kind of the focus of the Panthers, a refocused team. They played a non-scholarship team on the road last week at St. Thomas, and Coach Farley made no bones about the fact that they weren't focused enough. And you shouldn't have that problem going to play Nebraska. You should not have that problem in this game. So I'm excited to see kind of that edge return to the Panthers, and then let the chips fall where they do. But it's certainly going to be fun, right there leading up to kickoff and all that environment. Again, I'm from Southern California originally, so I've been to some college football games. I went to a school with an FBS team, so I've seen some good environments, things like that. I went to the Coliseum to see USC, Rose Bowl, UCLA, but nothing is going to rival that. So I'm very excited to see what that actually feels like in person.
What defines success for this team on Saturday?
Well, first off, coming out healthy. I think we don't have a huge margin for that, so nobody wants to go back to a drawing board if you lose somebody in this game. But I think it goes back to what I started the conversation talking about, the style of play. Be locked in mentally. That'll be the step forward from last week. And then just play fast and hard. And that's what Coach Farley wants them to do. If you make errors doing that, you can forgive that, and you can go back and try to fix that. but play fast, play hard, and as you're doing that, try to play as smart as possible. And I think the tape will tell that. I think no matter what the result is, right, I think the tape's going to tell that. Now, if Coach Farley was sitting right here next to me, I would have given a completely different answer. I learned my very first game. My very first game was an FBS game. We went out to Air Force, played Air Force, which is always a whole other deal in itself with their triple option and whatever. And the Panthers played okay. They didn't play great. They gave up a couple of big plays against that offense. And I tried to talk to Coach about moral victories, and he said there's no such thing. And so he expects to win these games. He wants his players to expect to win these games. So if you boil down success, it's still the same as any other game. You go out, and in the words of the great Herm Edwards, you play to win the game. And so let's, you got to see what's going to happen.
Well, break it down for us. We've seen weirder things happen. What if Northern Iowa was able to walk out of Lincoln with a win? How do they do it?
Well, they got to be able to run the football, which is no one has done yet. But as everybody's kind of pointed out, as you look at this matchup, we're a different type of offense than so far Nebraska has played. And so that'll be at least one challenge that we can throw in the mix for the first time to see how the Huskers can deal with that. A team that's going to line it up with two tight ends and try and run that football with those two big backs. So we will have, if we have success and can pull off this upset, we will have had success on the offensive side running the football. And we'll have to get better throwing the football to take advantage of the opportunities that might open up if we're running the football. And then on the defensive side, there cannot be big plays. The Panthers' huge bugaboo last year and missing the playoffs was too many times they played really good defense for 90%, 95% of a game, but then boom, there were big 60-yard chunk plays. And we've given up a couple of those in the first 2 weeks that have been really led to the only scoring for the first two teams that we have faced. So it can't be those big chunk plays, have to be assignment sound. Coach always talks about that, just doing your job. And then you make sure that everybody else is doing your job on a play, and you'll be in good shape. So I think running that football and making sure there's none of those big plays that beat people over the top or you miss a tackle and somebody gets free on the edge. And that'll be the way if the Panthers are going to have a shot that they would pull up an upset.
Well, JW, we appreciate your time tonight. That is the voice of the Panthers, JW Cox. Safe travels to and from Lincoln, and we hope you enjoy your time on Saturday.
Absolutely. I don't know how I won't be able to enjoy it. It's going to be great. Looking forward to it. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate you. If you missed JW Cox's breakdown of the Panthers and what to expect from them on Saturday, check it out at soundcloud.com/afterhours1620. It was brought to you by Jerry Ryan Clothing and Sportswear. Maybe you're headed to Memorial Stadium on Saturday and you don't have anything with an embroidered N on the chest. We've got you covered at Jerry Ryan. From Mizzen and Maine to Johnny O, they've got it all, from vest, sports coats, polos, you name it, they've got you covered, even quarter zips. Stop by 78th and Dodge. Get your suit game right. Get your closet ready for game day as well. We break down 3 NFL games that you should watch this weekend on the other side of the break. We come back at 16:20 The Zone.
Hey there, folks. It is Dan Campanen here once again to let you know that all 10, I said 10 great locations of Pepper Jack's Grill are open on Saturday. So whether you're washing football or just washing your car, you can do whatever you want and be satisfied right after it with a great sandwich from Pepper Jack's. You know how I like mine: steak, gunner Philly, all the vegetables, including that jalapeno juice. And what do I tell you every single time? Don't forget about the fries. You'd be a fool to forget about the fries at Pepper Jack's Grill, because they are great with that wonderful ranch dipping sauce that I can't get enough of. So if you're hungry on Saturday or Friday or Thursday or right this minute, go to one of Pepper Jack's 10 great local locations.
7:31 on a Wing Wednesday edition of the After Hours Lounge, brought to you by Pyramid Contractors. Head over to pyramidroof.com to book a free estimate. Maybe you're starting to turn the air conditioner down a little bit. You're starting to see some fog build up behind your windows. That's not supposed to happen. Let the number one roofer in Omaha for over a decade come take care of your windows, gutters, siding. They do it all. Head to pyramidroof.com to book that free estimate today. Before we get into our 3 games to watch this weekend in the NFL, Luke Fickell has made an interesting decision this week. The highest number of recruits that Wisconsin is targeting is coming to Camp Randall this Saturday. Now, why is that a big deal, John Schreiner? You may be asking.
I am asking, why is that a big deal?
They play Alabama this weekend.
Oh, that reason.
Yeah, this is certainly a choice by Luke Fickell and staff. You typically want to have the best showing you can in front of the recruits you're bringing in. Now listen, there's a good chance I might be wearing egg on my face come Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Because there is the fact out there that Wisconsin could win this football game. That is a possibility.
They could.
This is a bad decision by Luke Fickell and his staff.
It's certainly a gamble. They're shoving all the chips in the middle right here, right? Like, they are banking on making an impression on these kids in a big spot.
And Camp Randall is a very cool college football experience, and I felt gross even saying that out loud, but it is.
So, honestly, when else are they going to do it?
The number 4 team in the country is coming to town.
Right? If you want to be an elite program and you need those recruits on your campus to be that elite program, then you've got to gamble. This is absolutely what they have to do.
Alabama's a 16.5 point favorite in this game.
Good time to pull an upset when all your recruits are on campus.
Like I said last night, buy. That lineup as high as you can take it.
Yeah, I think they absolutely roll in that game, even with Jalen Milroe as their quarterback. Speaking of quarterbacks, the NFL has a bunch of them. They're all pretty good. 2 of them on display for 2 of the best quarterbacks week 1 on display against each other. The Saints are at the Cowboys on Sunday. 2 teams that were totally dominant, but over 2 very porous teams and maybe at the very bottom of the barrel in their division. That's my first game on the list for must watch this weekend in the NFL. I think it's going to be I think we're going to find out how for real this Saints team can be. This is a really big measuring stick for that team this week.
All right. Okay. My number 1 game to watch is actually tomorrow.
It's a pretty good one.
Bills Dolphins. This may tell you who's going to win the AFC East.
I agree.
I mean, this game is going to go a long way because this game, Bills Dolphins, is in Miami. If the Bills can go on the road and win in Miami, I think they have the inside track on the AFC East.
And even more of an advantage, you know what that tells you? The game later in the season where it's not going to be as warm. It's in Orchard Park.
Exactly my point.
Dan, what's your number 1 game to watch this week in the NFL?
Well, I'm doing mine in reverse order, technically, of how much I care.
What's
about
number 3 then, Dan?
me. The first one that I would like to watch and highlight is Seattle at New England, because in my mind, I want to know, last weekend, New England, was that a fluke, or has Gerard Mayonnaise really gotten this team turned around and has gotten them back on the right track? You know, it's always gone to show that in the NFL, a defensive-minded head coach is usually a successful head coach. I don't know what's in Gerard Mayonnaise's head except for the fact that his last name is Mayonnaise.
Number 2 for me is another AFC East team, by the way, and it is the Jets at the Titans. I'm interested to see how Dan's favorite person, Aaron Rodgers, looks when he's not going up against the number 1 defense in all of the world, the San Francisco 49ers. Rodgers, Wilson, Breece Hall didn't fare so well against the 49ers on Monday Night Football. Short week. They go on the road for the second straight week. Bad draw for Aaron Rodgers in his first 2 games back from the Achilles tear. He did not look great, but not too many people do against that 49ers defense. If they struggle in Nashville, there's a lot more questions about Aaron Rodgers and Robert Saleh.
My number 2 is Chiefs Bengals.
Speaking of teams if they are who they were a week ago.
Bengals look bad.
Yeah.
The Bengals did not look like a team that's going to contend anywhere near the top of the AFC based on what you saw in week 1.
The Bengals don't look like a team that's going to contend anywhere near the top of the AFC North.
Okay.
Week 1.
Week 1 is notorious in the NFL for being fool's gold.
Can I ask a question about week 1 in the NFL? Did it kind of feel like preseason week 4 to you guys?
Oh, certainly.
Okay.
Yeah.
100%.
Make sure it wasn't just me.
But the Bengals tend to play really well against the Chiefs. Under
Some
Zach
people
Taylor.
call the stadium in Kansas City Burrowhead.
So I think we're going to find out, are the Bengals bad this year, or was it just week 1 in the NFL? That's why I'm interested in this game.
They have a disappointing season. They being the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yep.
Zach Taylor's seat get a little hot?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Not yet.
Dan?
So mine is actually another matchup that we saw in the playoffs last year, which is Tampa Bay going to Detroit once again.
Mm-hmm.
Is Baker Magic real?
Ooh.
Are the Lions the team that everyone has hoped that they would be in year number 2? In week 1, both of those statements have been generally true. Is Baker going to come into this game with a bigger chip on his shoulder? Is the NFL doing the greatest tease of all time and just giving us the games that we want to see for the Detroit Lions week 1 and week 2?
Yeah, that's a good point.
With the best possible storylines. We will see, and I expect some real fireworks out of that game at noon.
Is Baker Mayfield the luckiest human being ever? Like, he just falls upwards every time something like he left Texas Tech, ends up being the starter at Oklahoma, wins the Heisman Trophy. He gets drafted to Cleveland, and they try to replace him as soon as possible. Ends up in Tampa and gets handed the keys to that franchise post Tom Brady. Like, he just always ends up at a better spot.
So here's the thing.
Think about this in any walk of life and any type of employment. Your job's like, you probably stuck in Cleveland for a couple years, or you can go to Tampa, Florida, where there's no state tax and it doesn't get below 70 degrees ever.
There's a thing that happens with players who are hateable.
And Baker Mayfield is definitely one of those people.
They get judged way more harshly than they actually deserve to be based on their play.
Agreed.
Baker's not as bad as the people who hate him would have you believe. He's a serviceable quarterback.
Agreed. I think he's a top.
He's a solid
quarterback.
NFL starting quarterback. He's not this franchise killer.
Yeah,
like he's been labeled. He's a jerk.
Him and Kevin Stefanski did not get along.
He's a hothead. All that's true.
Yeah.
He's also a pretty good quarterback.
He's not Deshaun Watson though.
Nope.
My third game is the game that you just referenced a minute ago, Dan, and it's Tampa at Detroit as well. The line's 7-point favorites in this game, but I really think while everyone is really playing catch up with the 49ers, I believe these are two teams that are going to be a great measuring stick for each other. You're going to find out which one of these teams has got a better chance at an inside track shot at an NFC championship spot, and it's going to be this game is going to be much closer than 7 points in my opinion as well.
I put a little bit of a sickos game on my third tier.
Love it.
It's a game that you have no reason to want to pay attention to.
I think I know exactly.
But there is a reason that you should pay attention to it, and it's Browns Jags.
That's what I thought you were going.
Because the question is, who will be ready to dump their starting quarterback sooner?
Oh, it's definitely Cleveland, right?
But if Cleveland wins this weekend,
it
might be Jacksonville.
I don't like.
What if Deshaun Watson comes out?
They just gave him all that money, though.
They
just paid Trevor Lawrence,
and they win 28-7. You think Jaguars fans wouldn't be ready to show Trevor Lawrence the door?
I mean, he didn't play great against the Dolphins either. 12-21, one.
That's why this game is intriguing to me, because I think it's going to show us like one of these teams is going to be 0-2, and the fan base is going to be ready to chop off the starting quarterback's head. That's interesting.
I'm praying that it's Cleveland.
I didn't understand. I understood more when the Packers paid Jordan Love. Like, that made at least a little bit of sense.
Yeah.
But it came off of 1 year, his first year, basically. And like, I get, and we've seen franchises and what it looks like other than in Green Bay, Wisconsin, where when you don't have a franchise quarterback and what it could look like. But like, what has Trevor Lawrence really done to show you that he deserved that money in this contract?
He won a national title at Clemson.
Cool. Congratulations.
Pantene commercial.
Last time I checked, the NIL deals out of Clemson are no longer being funded towards the Jacksonville Jaguars collective.
Yeah.
But he's not Daniel Jones, but even Daniel Jones got this boatload of money. Like, I don't understand if just NFL agents are superior to every other salesperson on the planet, but like,
NFL GMs are terrified of making the wrong decision.
And it happens all the
quarterback.
time in Duval County. So I don't understand why it's necessarily that scary. Is there a game this week that you just absolutely aren't watching in the NFL? Because I mean,
yeah, it's Washington and New York. I'm not watching that garbage.
When you said
That game is
Sicko's
trash.
when you said Sicko's game, I thought that's where you were gonna go and be like, who's worse?
Okay, there's a Sickos game, and then there's an idiots game.
yeah.
And Washington, New York is for the idiots.
Well,
It's the one that you peel the eyelids back and give them the Ludovico treatment to.
Don't watch that game.
The line,
So you have to watch all of
in that
this.
game is Washington 1.5. Am I crazy in thinking the Commanders just blow them out?
no, because
No,
Washington
not at
doesn't do
all.
good things.
Yeah.
Jimmy.
Daniel Jones. That's all you need to know about that.
Washington's defense.
It will stop Daniel Jones. We didn't talk about this, and I can't believe we haven't gotten to this yet. I know it was a tribute. Those Giants uniforms were awful, right?
It didn't look like they were wearing pants.
Yeah,
Like
mean-
all game.
You
Yeah.
mean the Montreal Canadiens?
yeah. Man,
They were wearing the New York Rangers.
Daniel
throwbacks.
Daniel Jones's stat line: 22 of 42. He completed 22 passes for 186 yards and threw 2 picks. He got sacked 5 times. The Vikings defense finished bottom half in the NFL.
The
last year.
only way that you should watch any of Commanders Giants is if it comes up on Red Zone.
Little spoiler, yeah, but you know what? It's probably not going to. But a little bit of a spoiler here for our next segment. Man, I think Washington just blows the doors off the Giants this weekend. Hey, if you missed our picks on which games you should be watching this week in the NFL, check it out at soundcloud.com/afterhours1620. Did I skip you? Did we miss one?
Did you guys both do 3?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't get to do my third.
Go ahead.
What's your third
wait.
game?
My
Dan.
third one is the Sunday night cap.
I didn't think he had anything. I was like, did you
Ooh.
really just stop us to not know the answer to what your third one? Go
No,
ahead.
I do know
Sorry.
what my
Go
third
ahead.
one is. It's the Sunday night cap because I want to see CJ Stroud and the quarterback that the Chicago Bears are hoping will end up being CJ Stroud by the end of this season.
He definitely wasn't in week 1.
Spoiler alert, it's probably not going to happen. I'm also extremely interested to see, it's a little bit of a step up this week for the Houston Texans as far as the passing game will be concerned, because that safety core right now for the Bears, if I have to say a nice thing about the Bears, their safeties and their cornerbacks are fairly good
Also known as their secondary.
and are doing a very good job in coverage so far this year. And I will be more interested just to see how Caleb Williams fares against a probably top 10 defense in the NFL right now. I mean, obviously time will tell how good the Houston Texans are, but if I'm to believe the 2 men who sit across the board from me every night,
Oh,
the Houston
Dust.
Texans are going to be very good this year, and I should not be surprised if CJ Stroud is setting the world on fire with his beautiful
He's good.
play.
He's good. That was all 3 of our 3 picks this weekend. If you missed it, check it out, soundcloud.com/afterhour1620. Wherever you may find your podcast, that is brought to you by AX Plumbing, home or residential. They can do it all. Check out axpservice.com for all your plumbing, water heater, gas piping, and backflow prevention issues. Check out AX Plumbing because they are locally owned and operated, and they'll leave your home or business cleaner than they found it. Head over to axpservice.com tonight. We'll be right back, giving you a last call on some winners. Head you out on a Wednesday night on 1620 The Zone.
Bring 'em out, bring 'em out. Bring 'em out, bring 'em out. Bring 'em out, bring 'em out.
Hey, everybody. John Schreiner here for Cunningham's Pub. You know what Derek and the crew brought us tonight? Some of their great appetizers on Wing Wednesday. The BLT bites, the fried mushrooms, the quesadilla with the spicy little dipping sauce to go with it. Man, I'm telling you what, they were fabulous. You know what's a good primer for wings? Those BLT bites with the lettuce and the tomato and the bacon on the pita bread with the little sauce that they spread on. Oh, man. I want another one. I might go out in the break and just grab one out of the bucket out there if Jimmy didn't eat them all. You got to get yourself to Cunningham's. Try some of their great apps to go along with the great smoked wings that we get from them on Wing Wednesday. And how can you get free wings? Well, I'm glad you asked, because right now, if you go to any of the social media pages, Facebook, Twitter, for After Hours, you see the GIF of the wings. What you got to do, follow After Hours, retweet that GIF. You're going to be entered into a drawing for a $25 gift card to Cunningham's. What could be better than free wings? Free wings from Cunningham's. That's what could be better. Go do it. Get yourself involved. Get in the drawing tonight. You want those free wings. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. You get all the great food specials, all the great drink specials, plus all the TVs with all the great football games on all weekend long at the 2 locations, Old Mill and Blackstone. Get yourself to Cunningham's tonight.
This show is a democracy.
Is it?
I enjoy your guys' opinion.
All right.
Not always.
The time. John, I appreciate your opinion.
Fair. That is a fair assessment of this show.
Is it time? Has the time come
to
retire closing time?
No.
Just think with the new segment to end the show, maybe
We
a little
need
more
something-
gambling friendly.
We need a little different something.
I don't know. We'll think about it. We appreciate you, Semisonic, and all you've done for 5 years, but Old Yeller may be walking behind the behind the garage.
So it's not a democracy.
The vote is out there. The vote is out there.
Let's ask the people.
We should ask the vote. We haven't posted a poll question tonight. This will be the poll question tonight. Do we retire closing time? Oh, at After Hour 1620, don't forget to share the GIF of the wings so you can enter yourself into winning to win a gift card in a drawing to Cunningham's Pub tonight. We are brought to you by Pyramid Contractors. If you need your windows, gutter siding, or gutters done, they do it all. Pyramid Contractors. Head over to pyramidroof.com and book a free estimate today. We gave you our college picks yesterday. We're going to round out our NFL picks tonight. I'll start us off. I have the Ravens -8.5 at home over the Raiders. That offense in Vegas is putrid. The Ravens absolutely should run away with this game. I'm going to go ahead and throw into the parlay. Give me the Washington Commanders. Buy it up as high as 4.5. Get you a little bit of juice as well. And I'll take the under of 36.5 between Denver and Pittsburgh. Speaking of putrid offenses, they both have one. It's not going to get better. Justin Fields may not attempt to pass over 2.5 yards. Russell Wilson will probably be standing in pads, even if he's not going to play, as we've learned this year. And then I will take the 49ers to score the first touchdown, minus 182 in my prop. The whole bet will be minus 856, courtesy of our friends at Warhorse Sportsbook.
All right. Okay, I'm starting off with my bet against the spread. Chargers-Panthers seems really easy. Chargers -6. They win this game by 2 touchdowns.
Every NFL
easily,
team should be favored by 37.5 over
Chargers
over
-6. It's going to pay you minus 109. Not great, but it's easy money. Over under. I got Browns Jags, the game I told you should watch because you're a sick person. Under 41.5 total points. Both quarterbacks are bad. Both offenses are bad. They're not going to score a lot of points. This game's going to be like 17-13.
Over under 2.5 picks in that game.
Over.
Okay.
And then my player prop, I got Josh Allen tomorrow night over 36.5 yards rushing. Dude seems like he just wants to run the ball.
He does seem to enjoy it, yeah.
So I think he's over 36.5.
Dan Campbell?
Yes. For my spread bet, the Philadelphia Eagles are favored by 6.5 points over the Atlanta Falcons. I feel like that is an easy click and buy, folks. And for my
for the Eagles.
For the Eagles,
okay.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Sorry.
Right, go ahead.
The Eagles to score more than 6.5 points to win that game. And speaking of John's idiot game of the week, the under for Giants and Commanders is set at 43.
How?
Folks, I'm going to tell you right now, it's a good idea to take that under. Unless Jaden Daniels decides that offense is cool again and wants to have some real fun. And then mine is not a player prop bet, but a game prop bet.
Okay.
There will be more than 3.5 successful field goals in Bears-Texans.
All from Chicago?
Most likely. Cross my heart and hope to die.
Early thoughts on the retiring closing time. The patrons of the After Hours Lounge are very passionate about the band Semisonic because we've got 3 early votes all coming in on no to keep closing time around. We appreciate everybody joining us here on the After Hours Lounge tonight. If you missed it, our good friends from Big Brothers Big Sisters of the Midlands stop by. You can learn about becoming a mentor in the Midwest. Our friends Emma Beebe and Randy Beagley were here earlier. Also, J.W. Cox, the voice and play-by-play voice of the UNI Panthers, joined us at 7:15 to weigh in on his thoughts for the Nebraska UNI game. John and I are pre-recording our show on Friday since we both have play-by-play duties in the high school ranks this Friday. You can catch that show live on Friday night here on 1620 The Zone, but it will be pre-recorded. Our bets tonight were brought to you courtesy of Warhorse Casino and Sportsbook off 63rd and Q Slots Table Games, and yes, their sportsbook is now open. If you or someone you know is having a gambling problem, call 402-806-7344 today. For Dan Campen and John Schreiner, I've been Jimmy Allen. It's been 23 years, and since our nation has been changed forever, our prayers go out to everyone who was lost and the families that were affected, but celebrate National Patriot Day tonight.